Hello and welcome to Vlogging About Comics episode 4. Today we'll be counting down my top 10 comic books of 2012. The one thing I would like to just say before we start is at the moment I've just started reading Fatale and I've got the back issues and I'm just catching up on Wolverine and the X-Men. Those books, plus also there's Walking Dead as well, which I've not caught up with yet. So there's books there that probably would have featured heavily in my top 10. But because I've not read them yet, I've not included them. I've only included books that I've read and I've enjoyed that were released in 2012 and I bought last week or before. Anything else, that I've not read yet, I'm not going to include. Okay, that's just how it's going to be, because otherwise I'd be like waiting until I'd read the books, and by the time I'd got round to doing this, we'd be halfway through 2013. So let's get down to business. At number 10 in my top 10 comic books of 2012, it is Batwoman. This was a book that had a mixed year for me. It started off, it got a bit confusing at the beginning of the year. Williams stopped doing the art and I dropped it, and then I heard the book had improved, so I picked it back up from issue 12 and the story had improved. Yeah, we're still after the same child killer or child kidnapper that Batwoman's been after since issue 1, but she sort of thought she was after this organisation called the Medusa. She finds out that Medusa is actually a woman and is the Medusa from Greek mythology, so she teams up with Wonder Woman to try and track down and capture Medusa. The story's really improved, I feel. It's a lot less confusing and a lot more easy to follow. When Williams is on art, it does really catapult this book and makes it one of the best looking books out there. Nobody can make a book look as gorgeous as Williams does, and the way he integrates everything on the page into his panels and into telling the story is just brilliant. And for Williams' artwork alone, it deserves a place in the top 10. Hopefully 2013 will be a more consistent year for Batwoman, but yeah, this book is number 10 in my top 10 of 2012. So next up we have book number 9 in my top 10, and it's a mini series, Before Watchmen Silk Spectra. This was a book, when the Before Watchmen books were announced, it was the book I was least looking forward to, but I think out of all the books, it was the one I enjoyed the most. Darwin Cook and Amanda Connor really tell a really great story and draw you in. And they took a character that I didn't care about, and by the 3rd issue, I'm heartbroken for this character, for what happens to her. And that is all down to the great artwork by Connor that tells the story, but also the great writing by Cook and Connor. And it was a real highlight for me, and it's a shame all the Watchmen books couldn't have been this good. And the thing as well that they do is they stay away a lot from the main story, and it's just this side story that tells you a bit more about the character of Laurie, and it was really good, really surprised me, and yeah, my number 9 in my top 10, Before Watchmen Silk Spectra. So next up we have book number 8. Have I got that right? Yeah, book number 8, and it is another mini-series, my favourite mini-series of the year, Star Wars, Darth Vader and the Ghost Prison. I can remember first reading Dark Horse comics, Star Wars comics, back in the 90s. I think it was Dark Empire 2 was the first book I read. And I loved the fact that you had the characters from the trilogy and their adventures were not just continuing in the novels, but in comics as well. I loved that I was able to buy a comic book and follow what was happening to Boba Fett and to Luke Skywalker and to Han Solo and to Princess Leia and to Chewbacca, and all the characters I loved from the original trilogy. Then they brought out the prequels and we started to get more comics. We got to see the adventures of a younger Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi. We got to see, the Clone Wars, and to see the adventures of Anakin Skywalker and all the Jedi, and to see all the Jedi in action and the universe with Jedi. And then when episode 3 came out, we now got the early years of the Empire, of the Vader adapting to being Darth Vader, to the early days, and to the building of that, of what we saw in the original trilogy. But then it felt like the book seemed to then take a turn, and they seemed to get further away from the characters that we knew, and they were basically just ended up being science fiction stories set in the Star Wars universe, which I didn't enjoy. I wanted to see the characters I knew and loved, you know. But this year, and I don't know if it is just this year, because like I was away from comics for a bit, and it was the New 52 that brought me back. So they may have been doing this for a few years now, but it just seemed that this year Dark Horse seemed to really hit on this really successful formula for doing Star Wars comics, in that they took a character like a Darth Vader, they put him at the centre of the story, they put a cast around him, a cast of characters around him, where anything can happen to these characters. They can live, they can die, and you tell a story, and you get that feel of the Star Wars you knew and loved, because there's a familiar face there, but they're able to tell different stories with the characters around them, and that's what they did here with Darth Vader and the Ghost of Prison, and it was a fantastic 5-part miniseries. I think it was 5 parts. Basically what happens in this story is you've got General Gentis, who is the headmaster of the academies of the Empire, and he's sick and tired of sending cadets to their death for the Emperor. So he tries a bit of a coup to overthrow the Emperor, using all the cadets from all of his academies because they're all loyal to him. And so like Darth Vader is then in this position of being an underdog. He sort of flees with the Emperor, you know, injured, and him with the characters that he's with has to then find somewhere to hide. They find out about this Jedi prison, that the Jedi used to be top secret, and the Jedi would send the most dangerous criminals there to be imprisoned there, but because the Jedi were all killed out, nobody knows about it, so nobody's checked up on it. So it's just been left there, and sort of Vader goes to hide out there, and sort of how is he going to be able to overthrow Gentis and his army of cadets. It was a really great book. The final issue was just fantastic. So much action. Every page was like a oh my god moment, and the twist at the end as well was just superb, and it was just a great book. It was also really good in that, like, you've got your characters in this, like Vader. He's basically disabled because he's just a torso. Everything else has been chopped off, so he is a disabled man, but he doesn't let that damage him. But the 2 supporting characters in this story were also both, the one had a robotic arm, the one just had one arm, but they were both disabled as well. But it was never a big thing. It never stopped them being a major character in the story or really pushing the story forward, and it was never made a big thing of. That character's got blonde hair, that character's got one arm, you know, that was how matter-of-factly it was put across, and I liked that they got, and that's something that science fiction has always done well. It sort of took real life stuff and sort of, like, you look at the original Star Trek and how they had a mixed race crew at a time when you wouldn't have got that on any other TV show. Or you had a black woman in a position of authority, which you wouldn't have got back in the 60s on any other TV show. So science fiction always does well pushing those kind of things, and they do well here. And it was just a really great story, and I enjoyed it, and it's number 8 on my top 10 of 2012. So now we're getting down to it, and we're not up to number 7 now. And number 7 on my top 10, first book from the new 50, no, second book, sorry, from the new 52. It is The Flash. I've loved this book since issue 1. It's just got better and better. Very much like with Williams on Batwoman, when Francis Manapul draws the book, because he co-writes it as well, when he draws the book, it just lifts up to another level, and he just has this really great way of integrating everything into to really have a unique feel and a unique look. The story has been great as well. There were times where you was feeling, God, they're forgetting stuff. You know, this is not good. You know, what happened to this character, or what happened to that, and then they come back to it. And I think that's something that they've done well this year. Is they've laid things out there, and you think that they're forgetting about it, but then they come back. And so yeah, they've done a brilliant job with this book. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm still really enjoying it. And I just think, I have not got a clue where this book's going to go next, because they just keep going. You don't know what's going to happen here, and that's brilliant, and that adds to the enjoyment of the book. And It's just been a really great read and really great stuff. So my number 7 on my top 10 of 2012 is The Flash. So now we're almost halfway. We're up to number 6, and it is this book, The Manhattan Projects. Jonathan Hickman writing this book. If you liked Hickman's first couple of issues of the Avengers and you liked his Fantastic Four run, you're going to love this. It combines a bit of history with a bit of sci-fi just to equal a whole overall really great, entertaining, wacky package. It's set around the real life Manhattan Projects, but it's like, what if all these scientists that built the atomic bomb, what if they were doing all these crazy experiments and the atomic bomb was just a cover for all of these crazy experiments they were doing? And that's your basic premise at the start of the book. It takes real life characters. You can research the characters that are mentioned in this book. They were all real people, and it's really fascinating how he twists them slightly and gives them these like sort of strange stuff going on, and it's just brilliant. And you know, the first 3 issues very much feel like a standalone story, but then things start being pulled together, and little bits, again a bit like The Flash, bits that you think, oh well, what happened to that character? Suddenly, oh, that's what happened to that character. It's been a really great read, really great ride, and it's well worth checking out. My number 6 on my top 10, The Manhattan Projects. So now we're halfway, we're up to number 5, and it's a book that I only read last week, but I was so impressed with the first 5 issues that, you know, I'm now on board. That book, of course, is another Image book. It is Revival. I just really love this book. When I initially heard the premise, it's about a town where people come back to life, I instantly thought Walking Dead. Why when Image are doing Walking Dead, are they doing another zombie book? It makes no sense. Surely nothing can like do better than what Walking Dead's doing. But it's not that same kind of book. Totally different book. It's set in this rural community in Wisconsin, and these people come back to life, but it ain't like zombie back to life. It's like they come back to life as in like they were when they died. Their bodies heal. If they've had been stabbed or mutilated in some way, it heals, and they're fine. But nobody knows why these, like, I think there's about 23 that come back to life. Why these people have come back to life, what's made it happen. So the town gets cut off, gets quarantined, and we have our 2 main characters, Officer Dana Cypress and her sister Martha. And it's this small town, so everybody sort of knows everybody, which really adds to the book. And you've got all these mysteries going on, and there's a big twist at the end of the first issue that really adds another mystery in there and really takes the book in a new direction. And it's just been a real good hoot. I've really enjoyed the first 5 issues, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this book goes, because there's still a lot of mysteries yet to be solved. You know, the first arc really just introduced all the characters and introduced the status quo, but it didn't really answer any of the long-term mysteries. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going to go with this, and it's definitely one worth checking out. And number 5 on my top 10 of 2012, Revival. So now we're getting down to business, and we're on to number 4. And number 4 on my top 10 list is, I think this is the first Marvel book on my top 10. It is Hawkeye. I've always been an Avengers fan. As a kid, I can remember my local newsagents would sell American comics, and every month it would be Avengers or West Coast Avengers were the books that I would look for. So I've always known of Hawkeye, and I've always liked Hawkeye as an Avenger, but he was never a character that I liked enough that I was like, yeah, I'd love to see a Hawkeye ongoing. So when this book came out, I wasn't that excited. I didn't pay it no attention. But then I heard all this hype for it, so I kind of went back and I read it. I read it 3 times in the one night when I bought it, because I just was blown away. It was such fun. It was so great. And the thing about this book is it's a total package. You've got a great script by Fraction, who writes Hawkeye brilliantly as this cocky, arrogant kind of guy, but at heart he's a good guy, and he always tries to do the right thing, and it's doing the right thing that gets him into all this kind of trouble. And by concentrating on what Hawkeye does on his days off, when he's not an Avenger, I thought was also a nice take on the character. We then have the art of David Aja, who has a very minimalistic kind of style. Not as many lines, not as much detail, but he lays the book out really nice, and it looks unique. You then add to that the colours of Matt Hollingsworth, who, to go with the minimalistic art as a minimalistic colour palette to colour the book, so you don't get the whole colour spectrum. You get, you know, a shortened palette, mainly purples and a beige and some shading. But that's it. You know, there isn't that whole lot of colour in the book, but it works. It gives the book a totally unique feel and shows when you have everything comes together good how great that can be. And the book has just been a load of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, because it seems like the first 3 issues were like standalone stories, and then issue 4 and 5 was a 2-part story. And then issue 6 kind of brought the events of the first 3 issues, or the consequences of those events, sort of came home to roost in issue 6. So that the books kind of started to tie together, which was good. And so it's going to be interesting, because there will continue to be repercussions to what Hawkeye has done. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this book goes. And yeah, another book worth checking out. Number 4 on my top 10 list, Hawkeye. Next up, number 3, and we have The Man Without Fear, the second Marvel book on this top 10. It's Daredevil. This was probably my favourite Daredevil cover of the year. Mole Man has always been one of my favourite villains, so this was the first issue of Daredevil that I picked up. I enjoyed it, but I didn't come back regularly for a few months. I've caught up now with Daredevil, and oh wow, what a great read it has been. I'm just trying to check, it doesn't say which month this one come out. It has been a great book. The way it is built, I love the way the art is very dark, so when Daredevil shows up in that bright red outfit, it really makes him stand out. I love the story, the way that they've been messing with Daredevil's mind, and how it's continually built, and then they've explained it, but the answer to your question is just another question now. I'm really enjoying this book. I wish I jumped on it from issue 1, but it's been a great read, and yeah, it's my number 3 on my top 10 of 2012, Daredevil. Next up is number 2, and number 2, and another book that is just superb. It is Batman. It's so great, this book, and it has been since issue 1. They've not had a bad issue in my mind yet. The Court of Owls story was fantastic. I love the whole Lincoln March thing, and how they never really answered it, you know, categorically. It was sort of left still a bit of a mystery. Was he, isn't he? Is he, isn't he? Was he, wasn't he? I liked that they left it ambiguous, so they could potentially come back to it in the future. We then jump on to the death of the family, which is even better. I've read comics since I was a kid, and I've never ever been as terrified of a villain as I am of Snyder and Capullo's Joker. He's truly terrifying, and that is not. I can remember all the different versions of the Joker in the past, but he was never a villain that terrified me. But here he does. He's just, you know, he's a character who, like, you know, when he said it was true or not, but he slept. He lay under Commissioner Gordon's bed while he slept. That is just freaky. That is just like kind of like boogeyman kind of scary. You know, like the boogeyman's gonna get you. But this book has just been so good. It is quite dark, you know, but like there's room for different types of books, and I've just really enjoyed every issue. It's like I'm always evaluating my pull list. What books do I need to keep picking up? What books can I cut off? What books are coming out that I want to start picking up? But this has been a book that I've never ever considered not once dropping, and I won't be while Snyder and Capullo on it, because it's just a joy to read it. And Capullo is just as important as Snyder. You know, Snyder deserves his credit. He's wrote a good book, but it's the visuals that, you know, Capullo has provided as well, which I think does make this book a fantastic read, and number 2 on my top 10 of 2012. So there we go. We're down to our last one on number 1, and my number 1 top book of 2012 is Saga. Not really a surprise. I think this will probably top most people's list for top books of 2012. It has just been a fantastic read. I originally didn't pick this one up. I had never read anything by Brian K. Vaughan. So when it came out and there was all this fuss, oh Saga, I kind of was like, yeah, Saga. I didn't really pay much attention to it. But then I saw, I think it was Ghost Critic did I think a separate review on it, and I think issue 2 came out and he was really raving about it. So the third printing of issue 1 had just come out, and I picked it up and I was like, wow. And then I just started picking it up every month, and I've been hooked ever since. The thing about this book and why it's my number 1 is it's the one book that I buy that when I'm reading it I'm totally enveloped in that world. Other books, I can be doing other things while I'm reading them. You know, I might be half watching a football game or doing something on the computer, or you know, or having a sandwich while I'm reading the book. With Saga, the rest of the world stops and I'm just concentrating on that book, and that is because it is so great. Fiona Staples' art is magnificent. The amount of expression she gets into faces and eyes is just, you know, fantastic. How talented she is to be able to do that. And then you've got the script by Vaughan. You know, a story that with all these fantastical things going on, but it's totally grounded with this love affair between these two characters. I'm just loving it. It's one of my favourite books, and I will definitely keep getting this one. My top book for 2010 is Saga. So there we go. That's my top 10. Please let me know in the comments below. Do you agree, disagree with my top 10? Are there any books that I missed out that you would have put in there? I always look forward to reading people's comments. Also, if you like this video, please down below tick the thumbs up button, and I look forward to reading any comments. Thanks as always for watching, and see you next time. Bye for now.